Welcome to another presentation in the Quantum Human Summit series. I'm so pleased to share with you today this session on increasing your telepathic connection with guides and masters. This is something that as a quantum human, we are destined to be able to bring online. And my guest today, Egan Saunders, is here to share what he knows from his worldly experience in spirituality as a spiritual teacher and a healer. Hi, Egan. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me again, Lauren. I appreciate it.
We are talking about expanding multidimensionality. And so telepathy is part of that. Tell us about your definition of being a quantum human and what it means to expand multidimensionality.
The definition, I think, just being your infinite self, but personified. Each person is an individual aspect of all that is. And so when you begin to awaken, suddenly realize, well, I am infinite and I'm also an individual. I'm both. So that's my definition of being a quantum human, I guess, is being aware of your physical life and also your infinity.
Thank you for that. So I love this topic, telepathy, increasing our telepathic connection.
Hmm.
And, as we remove the blocks and do our inner work, this is what opens up to us. Share your experience with telepathy and your connection to your guides and masters.
I mean, for me, I was born fairly highly psychic, but there are lots of HSP or highly sensitive people out there, and everybody has psychic ability to a degree. Um, but sometimes I noticed when I was a little child, I would see like I could feel like there were other beings that were present. So I wasn't seeing them necessarily, but I would feel them. So that was the beginning of that, and I didn't know if there were messages, but I often noticed that I would feel things very deeply. I would feel the energy of things, or if I watched something on TV, I would really feel it. And then sometimes as I got older, I would get like a feeling from another person. Even if they were like silent, I could feel something emanating from their thoughts in some way. Even if they weren't sending me a telepathic message per se, I could feel something coming over. And I was like, oh, that's not me. That's that other person. It's something is being directed at me. So that's how I began to like sort of notice it, which we all do all day long. We're constantly getting messages from the environment, our neighbors, other people we're connected to in relationship. There's like a constant traffic, a back and forth with it. So just noticing that.
Yes, and it's good that you were able to sense that it wasn't yours. So
Mm.
many times I would think that many of us with this unhoned skill would not realize that it's not ours. How did you distinguish or discern that it wasn't yours?
I mean, that kind of took training. I mean, for a lot of years when I was younger, I was very vulnerable because whatever was, going on, I would feel. If it was a good environment, I'd feel great. And if it wasn't, I couldn't discern it. But that took a lot of training. Um, I think for me, the shift in the belief system, which allowed me to open up more, was back in the 1980s. I think it was 87. I went to a Shirley MacLaine seminar. She was teaching these psychic, like spiritual development workshops and, based on her books and everything. And so I remember we got paired up with other people and they said, okay, well, Shirley said, put your hands on the back of this person and just whatever images come to your mind, just say. So I'm like, I don't know. As I put my hands on the person's back and I'm like, the tropics, ships, pirate ships. Well, it turned out the lady and her husband were treasure hunters, and that's what they were doing was digging up treasure. So in that moment, even though I had the ability, like the reality, it was like, oh, like it really was very profound to realize, oh, I just put my hands on their back and I was picking up what she was thinking. So that was sort of the beginning of it becoming more and more real. Because sometimes you have like feelings about things, but you're like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I can't really tell. But when something like that happens and they confirm it, it automatically changes your belief system. And so you want to sometimes get some training or some type of experience like that. That's like what I teach other people to do.
Yes, good, because it's that discernment and the experience that makes it become our truth. All right. And it validates it for us. So take us through how we establish a telepathic communication.
Mhm.
Maybe you can also share your story of how you did it yourself.
Hmm.
What is the protocol? What needs to be done?
Well, in a moment, I'm going to lead everybody through a meditation, and then I think that would be the best way, the direct experience. But the most fundamental, basic thing I learned years ago was I read this in a book, was about talking to your higher self. That was the beginning of it. So I would just walk around the streets of New York City and I would say, higher self, and I would ask a question and see what I got. And then sometimes it seemed like it was clear and wise, and other times like I didn't feel like I had the connection. Um, One time though, and this is kind of how I kind of built the belief system about this ability, was I asked like a question of my higher self, like a message in a meditation, and it just said, guilt is a no thing. Guilt is a no thing. And I'm like, I don't know what guilt is a no thing means. I don't understand what that means. Well, several months later, I had a past life recall, and suddenly I was confronted by something I had done in the past, inadvertently, just by my own ignorance, where it caused harm to myself and other people. And I felt tremendously guilty. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's what the message was all those months ago. And because I knew that's what it related to. And so my higher self had prepared me for that. But I developed that connection fairly strongly. Some people just go into the silence, but I would literally just imagine that I had a higher self, walk through this, walk or, do some type of meditation and just ask it questions and see what I got back. And that began to build that connection. In addition, the human body is like a radio. And so as I got more into spirituality and was reading lots of books every week and going, doing all sorts of classes and everything, I went through periods where I would have ringing in my ear or I would feel energy move through me. And something was being reprogrammed in my brain and my mind. The most dramatic example was like for like a week, I heard like a high pitched noise just start and it was ringing. And it went like for like a week. And so I'd be like in my office, I'd be like putting my finger against my ear, going, is it still there? It's still there. And it was still there. And then eventually it just faded. But then after that, I had greater ability. I'd been tuned to a higher, frequency. Nowadays, when I'm shifting my consciousness, I'll get the ringing for maybe like a few seconds. And then there's like a little bit of adjustment, a tightening of my consciousness. So you'll have a physical effect to that as well. If you keep asking for guidance, you'll get it. So that's how that worked. There were individual guides that I did attract. Um, and that was really sometimes through reading like a guide's materials, like a written thing. And then I would build like a psychic connection, a telepathic connection. And then they would talk to me. And now I could kind of like if I watch a lot of YouTube videos of like a teacher, let's say like Ramana Maharshi, who taught about non-duality. This a couple of years ago. I was listening to all his videos, and I became so into it that I would look at his photo, and he would just talk to me. And I'm like, okay, and I could tell it was him. It wasn't me making up, but I could really feel that. So there's different ways you can train yourself to tune into a being or an energy or a planet or like people channel Sananda or Jesus all the time. They attune to it and then they can channel that connection because they have the bond.
Yes, all right. You said something very important there. You said two things that struck my interest. One is the ringing in the ears. We
Mm.
hear that a lot. And we've actually, in my own experience as well, and then talking with other people who've experienced this, it's really at times, I remember the first time that that happened to me, it was pretty cathartic. It was very disconcerting at first. I thought
Mm.
something was happening. All I could think of to do was just go sit in a yoga pose and calm myself down. And that was about 30 years ago, maybe
Mm.
25 to 30 years ago. And then it progressed or it changed where one would start in an ear and then maybe even cross the head to the other
Mm.
side.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Mm.
so, when we're in sessions and we're with healing sessions with the Arcturians, for example, people will report ringing in the ears.
Mm.
What is ringing in the ears? It's information, yes? Or is it our guides? Is it our higher self? Or is it both? Is it
Mm.
everything?
It's different for different people. Sometimes other beings in other dimensions are literally trying to attune you in. Remember we had the old radios and you're like, you hear the static and then you're like, and like, and
Wow.
then you get it like tune in. Sometimes it's tuning in. Sometimes it's something that's changing in your brain. Um, to be honest,
Wow.
I don't know if I have an answer because I've had so many weird things happen to me where I get like hit with all sorts of energy and then mutating. It was because an old book called I'm Okay, I'm Just Mutating. And it talked
Yes.
about that when you're going through spiritual changes, like you'll
Yes.
go like sometimes you have like no emotion, or I get like really, really tired. And I just kind of sit for a couple of days and like I don't like I can't really do anything. And then I'd be back, So I would have all these sort of physical symptoms. Some of it was also the shifting of the planet because we have 8 billion people here now. And so collectively we're feeling energies with each other. That's why sometimes it can feel like high and giddy, and other times you feel like chaos or just like murky or cloudy. So it's feelings, it's sounds, because sometimes a thought form is very strong. A thought form can be very strong that everybody feels. They had a device that saw in a film where they could measure over time spikes in the psychic awareness. Like when 9/11 happened, like the way they were monitoring it, like it spiked and then it came down. So there's certain events that we collectively feel and then it spikes. And some of this is experienced through the body, through sounds, also light. Sometimes like I'll have like a sensitivity to light and I'm like I can't, like it's too much light. The other day my right ear, like it felt like I was deaf, like the pressure was wrong. And then I'm like, come on now, I'm putting the ear Q-tip in there and kind of shaking it around, and after several hours it just cleared. There's no organic reason why it happened. I'm not deaf and now it's back normal. I don't know. It's sometimes too big to understand, but that's the nature of cellular change or mutating.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that answer. I guess it's really important just to be aware, right? But not just ignore when we hear tones in the ear, but just maybe to take a pause and
Hmm.
connect in, or just be aware of the energy. And maybe again, here's that practice of asking the higher self, what was that? Or what do I need to know from this? Yes?
That whatever works best for you. Sometimes you can ask. Other times it's happened to me so many times. I'm just like, okay, like I'll just take it as like a thumbs up. You're doing good. So I'm like, okay, because if I had to analyze everything that I feel from people, like that'd be my whole life just analyzing it. And you can
Yeah.
get trapped in like trying to understand it too much. Whether we're working with the law of attraction or working with energies, there's some things that the mind wants to know, it just can't comprehend everything. It's like, if I said to you, okay, I want you to, understand everything biologically that's happening in your body and your heart and your breathing and what's going to happen next week, you'd be like, I can't do that. The higher self or your soul manages the features of your body. It manages the breathing of the lungs and the heartbeat and the growing of the skin. Your conscious mind doesn't do that. I think with some of these spiritual changes, the higher self and the soul is also managing those things after you have done your spiritual work, after you are doing, the transformation work. They're taking care of all those details. So I would just take it as a thumbs up that things that something's happening.
Yes, okay. Not to be freaked out by it, but just say, yeah, I'm changing, I'm mutating, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. The other thing that you mentioned was establishing a psychic connection.
Hmm.
Now, how do we do that? Is that, I mean, a consistency or asking?
It's different for every person. Now, some people have soul agreements that they're going to have a certain spirit guide or master work with them. So there's that aspect. If keep on asking for a connection with your divine self or your soul or your higher self, and you like do meditations, whether it's recorded or you're doing it in your mind, you will establish a connection. So basically asking. But what do we do with that? So for me, the reason I think my channels all opened up is because I wanted to understand, I wanted to grow. So I simply said, the higher self, what does this mean, or how can I understand this? So I would ask questions because I had a sincere desire to know, to have knowledge. So there has to be sort of like a reason. If you can't just like kind of say, hey, spirit guide, do some magical thing in front of me. Some people can do that. They have like, different seances and things like that. You can connect with ghosts, But I find that if you have a purpose, a reason for knowledge, or let's say you want to do healing work and you're like, okay, I want to work with healing guides. Well, that's an intention. You're setting an intention. And then if you do that on a consistent basis, it's like any relationship. Any relationship that you work on a consistent basis will go stronger. If you don't do it consistently, it's not going to be as strong. So there's lots of books and all sorts of things. But I was like reading a lot. I was like seeking knowledge. I was trying to understand. And then later on, I found that I had soul agreements. So there was one being from the planet Essassani. His name is Elan, Elan, a relative, so to speak, of Bashar. And I made a connection with him. There was another channel channeling Elan. And after reading all the material, I could hear him in my mind. And then after that, he's been in my mind for over 20 years now. So, because I was receptive to the wavelength of knowledge, and that establishes it too. So if somebody's into Hindu lore or paganism or Wiccanism or, Druid things, you will pull in beings, or the Deva kingdom, the angels that I work with to a degree, which I'll be doing in my class upcoming next week. That builds that bond. So you find what your system is, what resonates for you, and then you build that relationship with those beings, and one that excites you and that interests you, and then that will become stronger.
That is really cool. So we're looking forward to exploring more of this in our lives. I know that there's many watching who already have good connections with their guides. And I'm hearing a question from some in our audience. What if, or has this ever happened to you where suddenly you recognize that your guides are not talking to you? Is that a graduation for you to step back? Or what's going on if suddenly they're noticing no communication?
This is an interesting question. So it's always for your growth. So for example, I remember about over 20 years ago, I was listening to a lot of meditation tapes by Sanaya Roman. She channeled a guy named Orin, Orin. And so I was listening to the meditations, and then Orin kind of communicates, says, well, you're going to start teaching classes based on these books. Stop listening to the meditations, and I'm going to show you what you need to prepare. So I stopped the meditations, and I was preparing my own instrument to actually teach it was like a weekly book class. So that kind of thing would happen. So I would phase in and phase out, just like regular relationships. Like, you're close to somebody and they're out of your life for a while and you come back. I remember one period where, so I was connected very much to Orin, to Snea Roman, and Elan, that channel being. And then I was going through kind of a challenging time in my life, and I needed to do other spiritual growth, which was dealing with the unconscious mind, the shadow, kind of doing Eckhart Tolle work. This is, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that. And I could feel that my connection with the guides got weaker. And they're like, we're still here, but you need to kind of go into this, because our solutions right now aren't going to help you. You need to explore this other teaching. So if you're really growing, you will phase in and out. I have seen channels where they're channeling the same being for like 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, and they can have great information, but I'll often notice that sometimes it can become a little bit stagnant, because they're like, it's kind of the same message over and over, which can be beautiful, but I don't really sense the growth. Then there are other people who are channeling the same being, who keep on coming out with new material and growing. So it really comes down to how you want to grow. And then there's also something called spiritual committees, which are composed of many beings. When I do soul clearing work, which I did in a workshop on New Earth One, Advanced Clearing and Purification, when you do a soul clearing, you sort of connect with your spiritual committee, which is a series of guides that work with you, because there could be many. Connect with the spiritual committees of all the people, and then you do the process. So there are people who usually have like one main guide or guardian angel, and they might have a whole spiritual committee if they're doing a lot of spiritual work, like healing or coaching and counseling with other people. So you will phase in and out. It's like dancing, like, I'm going to go to a dance. I'll dance with this person. I'll dance with that person. So it depends on what kind of dance you want to do that night or day.
Okay. So you mentioned the guide Elan. Tell us more about this, because that's fascinating. That is an off-planet being, part of a community. Bashar channels these beings. Tell us about that, and tell us more about how you connected with this being and all the other beings. Share that story, because you've got many guides.
Well, I'm going to be doing a three-part series about the society, about the Essassani. The planet's called Essassani, but the society is called Sassani. It means place of living light. So basically, the scenario with the Sassani, or the people from Essassani, was that they lived several hundred years in the future. And what they did was they reincarnated on a soul level backwards. So when Daryl Anka channels Bashar, he's channeling his future self. When the gentleman who channeled Elan, he was channeling his future self. And so my experience was, I found these teachings around 2021. I found like a book about Elan, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was reading it, and then I started to meet some of the people who were part of the community following it. And I go, like, I know these people. Like I feel like I know them because I know people from other lives. But I said I couldn't figure out like what past life, because I was used to the past orientation. What I began to understand is that these people weren't from past lives. They were all from a future life, and I didn't know them from the past. So this was very strange. And so I'd meet people. I had an experience where I went to an event with a woman, and we're looking at each other, and for a second on our faces, we could see our future Sassani faces on each other's face. We both saw it simultaneously. And so the Sassani are a hybrid race, half human DNA, half what they would call zeta reticulum, and they're blended for the balance of emotion and intellect. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but I have a future as Sassani self. And so, yeah, it kind of, wraps around the mind. But I was reading the materials, and then I just asked for sort of a connection. I was reading it, and then Elan just started talking to me. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm going to be doing. And then I would get into these long conversations. And then he became one of my mentors. And so like 4 o'clock in the morning, and something's going on in my life, and so I started thinking, okay, Elan, what do I do? And he'll start talking to me, for hours and hours. So he would process with me emotionally a lot of things, and I learned his techniques. And so that's probably, one of my strongest guides. So it was a process, but it's a strange story, but that's the way it happened for me.
And it's, if this is happening to humans, we would, first of all, if we're not prepared for it, could absolutely think that we're going crazy or disbelieve it or not even let it in. So share with us a little bit about the trust and your own discernment that it's all good, or trusting your inner guidance. That's huge for so many.
It's sometimes there's like an intuitive sense of rightness. Like one time I was going through a particularly thorny issue. And so Elan said, what do you really believe about? Like the way he's like, he'd always say, if you feel a strong emotion, what would you need to believe in order to be feeling that? What was the real truth? And so very quickly, I had like some animosity towards a person, some resentment towards a person. And Elan said, what do you really feel? I go, anger. And he goes, why do you really feel that anger? And I was like, I realized I was angry at the person. I was blaming them for something, but actually it was an insecurity that I had. And I was like, oh. And the realization is so, and the anger went right away, and the peace came in, and I was like, oh. So when you have another being working with you and you feel that rightness, that's one aspect. So there's like a feeling of rightness. Sometimes I'm trying to connect with a being and it doesn't feel quite right, or I feel like the energy information doesn't feel quite right. Other times like it feels like very clear and strong. You're like, this has truth. However, as I just described earlier, when I looked at this other person's face and we both saw our future, Sassani faces, I was at a workshop. I was teaching in Venezuela, and we were doing a ceremony one evening in a labyrinth, and it was dark out. We're in a high mountain. So some guy goes, look, and he pointed up, and there was this ship that was passing over. And the ship stopped in midair. Okay, stopped in midair. It did like a curly, like a curl, and then it shot off in another direction. So it literally came, stopped in midair, and shot off probably at like 10,000 miles an hour. And we were all looking at it. that was a long ship. So because
Wow.
it was very, so it was kind of like a weird. And then I met the channel for Elan, and I was with him and his partner. And on that planet, we're a triad. Triads are simply three people who work in groups. And so I have a very close bond with them. And so, like, I met them and we were having this conversation, and I saw this overlay of our planet in the future. And both of the people are musicians in this current life. But then I saw them playing some very exotic instrument, and I could hear the music, and it was like nothing I'd ever heard before. But I was seeing the overlay of the future. So it's that weird thing of being multidimensional where you're like, how can I trust it? But sometimes you'll have a vision or a feeling that is so exotic or unusual, and you're like, yeah, I didn't make that up. I couldn't have, nobody with a fantasy. So you'll have those experiences. Some people have with angels where they feel like they're embraced by love. I've had that where I feel like I'm being supported. Other people see things. Other people have physical things that will move in the environment. So one time I was with an old girlfriend of mine, and she was playing with Davis. She was sitting on the floor of my apartment, and like I kept on feeling this like funny little feeling in my body. And I looked at her, and I could see with my auric vision these little beings that were dancing in front of her, and she was just kind of like like giggling and stuff like that. I mean, I never had that experience again, but she was very tuned into that community, and I was like, okay. She was just playing with little elves or something in my living room floor. I saw it. I don't always believe it, but you see those things. So you'll have it. You'll get a feeling. It'll feel otherworldly at times, or very magical or strange, and you'll notice a difference.
What about the dream space? Have you ever had guides come in the dream or ships come in the dreams?
I did. So when I met the channel for Elan and his partner, it was very strange when I made contact, because when I got the original material, I wasn't in contact with them. It was about 20 years until I actually met him, and there were different reasons for that. So when I finally did meet him, I was like, it was just very unusual. One night I had a dream where I was on Estasani, and I was like, all right, I gotta like take a trip or something. So like I saw myself in my little apartment and everything, and I got into what looked like a car, but it wasn't a car, it was a spaceship. And then I started like flying around the whole universe. And I've never had a dream. I mean, it just felt like I have like a little Kia Soul outside my driveway here. And it felt like I just got in my Kia Soul, and I was like, driving, and I'm like, oh, this is like normal. It's like, here's the radio, and here's like, and I was just driving, and I'm like, this is very normal. And then other people had their little spaceships. I'm like, I guess this is what it's on my planet. And I just flew around the universe. And I never had a dream like that again, but it was right around that time. So I was getting these signs and symbols. Sometimes I'll have prophetic dreams, and I've had some of those too. Sometimes I seem like I'm having conversations with other people, and that happens for a lot of people where they're like, I feel like I'm in a school, or I'm talking to people like in a class or something, and we're talking about spiritual things. So that's another typical dream that people will say, oh, I'm in contact with these other beings, and they're training me on another level of dimension of reality.
Yes, it's so fascinating. And
Mm.
we're doing significant work in the dream space, the sleep space.
Oh yeah.
And it's different every night, but things to pay attention to
Mm.
and to enjoy. Yes, okay. So let's if you'd like to share anything else about your story working with your guides and masters, let's have you share more on that. And then we want to go into a meditation to visit the Temple of the Masters.
I would just say before we do the meditation is that if you want to be a benefit to other people, if you want to be, whether through loving kindness or healing or teaching or, through your business, um, and you ask for help, you can do that. It could just be simply, and that was another technique I used to use where I simply, I think my original prayer it was from Edgar Casey, create in me a pure heart, O God. That was what Edgar Casey suggested in purifying yourself. So I remember like praying and doing that work, and then I got more information. So when you ask for purification or love or for world service, you'll begin to make contact. Things will come into your reality, but it's different for every person. Um, what we're going to do is we're going to sort of raise our energy and go to the Temple of the Masters, and whoever is listening or watches this video, whether it's in present time, whether it's far in the future, I'm going to make a psychic connection with anybody and everybody, past, present, and future, who will view this video so that when they make the connection with their own guide, they will feel that connection. So what I'm going to ask is that everybody who's watching this, simply close your eyes, take a deep breath in, breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, and allowing yourself to just relax and be here and now. If there's any energy that you have scattered out in the universe, any mental energy, any psychic energy, any emotional energy, anything you have to do after the listening to of this talk, just imagine you're calling back all of your energy back to yourself, almost as if you were reeling in a fishing line, pulling it in, reeling it back, calling all of your energy back to either your heart center or your third eye. And to begin with, bring your attention to the top of your head and imagine you are building a bridge upwards to the higher dimensions and planes of reality. You may see this as a line of light going up or a ladder. It could be a funnel that starts very small at the top of your head and opens up wider as it goes way, way up into the higher dimensions and planes of reality. And as you imagine this or sense this in whatever way, you are creating that connection to that higher plane, that bridge of higher reality. And whether you see it or sense it or feel it, or if you don't feel anything at all, even the intention to do it does build that bridge upward. And as we make this connection upward, we're going to connect with the source of all life, God, Goddess, the higher power, whatever you call that higher power, the source of all life. And imagine that it is pouring down from above, almost like a waterfall of light. And you are drinking in this beautiful light of the divine, of the presence. It's coming into the top of your head, and you're drinking it in to your body, to your cells, to your atoms, raising your vibration to a higher frequency until every muscle, tissue, organ, and fiber of your being is overflowing with an abundance of light. It's almost like you're swimming in an ocean of light now, an overflowing ocean of light all around you. This light is also moving through your mental body, clearing away any heavy thoughts or dense thoughts that you would like to let go of. Let this light transmute them and transform them and release them. This light is also moving through your emotional body, which would be around your heart area, pouring through all of your emotions, washing away any heavy emotions, dense emotions, releasing any feelings you'd like to let go of. Okay. And imagine that your mind is now like a clear mountain lake, clearly reflecting the higher planes of reality. You may imagine from your third eye area in the center of your forehead that it opens up like a lotus flower, like the many petals of a lotus flower. And this extends many feet, 360 degrees all around, to your right, to your left, upward, back, forward. And as this blossom opens, this lotus blossom opens of your consciousness, you're opening up your mental body to greater light, to greater knowledge, to greater connection, to angels, to masters, to guides, to your higher self, to your soul, opening up that portal. And Bring your attention to your solar plexus area. And here is your personal will. Your solar plexus symbolically is your personal will, your personal power. So to connect with the higher dimensions, we're going to simply build a bridge upward to the higher will or divine will. So simply imagine that you're plugging in a cord into your solar plexus and watching it as it travels upward into the sky, making a conscious connection with the higher will, the divine will, the will of God. This allows you to be in right action, to be connected with the power of divine will, and increases your attunement with those powers. And let us also make a deeper connection with your soul. So imagine that your soul is approaching you. You may see it as a blue flame or some other color, but imagine that approaching you is your soul. Some people see it as a sphere, some people see it as another symbol, other people will see it as a blue flame. To increase your connection telepathically and open up all your centers, simply ask for a deeper connection with your soul. As you do that, this flame or this symbol or this energy moves closer and surrounds you. For as you ask for a deeper connection with your soul, it strengthens it. And one more thing before we travel to the Temple of the Masters. Imagine there's an antenna at the top of your head that is telepathically attuned to the broadcast of humanity's highest path of evolution. By activating this antenna, you'll be in the higher flow, which means you may get messages intuitively from your higher self or your soul. It may be that you get it from guides or masters, but you're opening up that antenna. You can open it up as high as you want to, or let it be very small. But as a group, we are telepathically attuning to the broadcast of humanity's path of highest evolution. And this way, everything that you manifest will be for your highest good and the good of others. Okay. Notice how that feels to have those energies all working. The mental body, the source of all life, the soul, the higher will, the divine will, the broadcast of humanity's highest path. Notice how you're vibrating. And let us all form a cocoon around ourselves individually of white light. So just imagine a white light is forming around you. It may look like an oval or a sphere or a cocoon. And as this surrounds you, feel yourself being lifted up beyond the earth plane. It's as if you're being elevated higher and higher and higher to a place that some people call the soul plane or Shambhala. But just imagine you're being pulled upwards into a beautiful dimension. We'll simply call it the soul plane for now. It's a dimension of light, a place of great harmony and peace. It may feel as if you're floating, in a beautiful cloud-filled sky, like on a beautiful day. Some people perceive it as that, but it's a rarefied place, a higher dimension. The cocoon is bringing you up towards it. And as the cocoon travels around this dimension, you see a beautiful temple in the distance and you approach it. This is the temple of the masters. You're brought right to the entrance. There's a set of stairs. You walk up the stairs and there's an archway. No door, just an archway, an open archway, and you pass through it. And here in the Temple of Masters, you'll notice a few things. There are beautiful gardens, flowers and trees. Some of you may hear beautiful music. There's an all-pervasive sense of harmony and peace and lightness, exquisitely beautiful. Populating this temple are light beings. You may see them as looking like a regular human being, or you may see them as geometric figures or patterns of light or in some other way. Each individual expresses themselves in a different way. And as you explore this space, you're going to make a telepathic request here. There's nothing physical here, so you can't speak with your mouth, but anything that's telepathically sent, any thought is picked up. So I want every person here to ask for a connection with a guide or a master or an angel. Ask for someone to come forth for you to make that connection. As you do this, you may see a being come towards you or sense it in some way, or you just may almost feel like the thoughts of another being. But whatever you get is perfect. Imagine now that you individually go off with this guide and you sit down on a bench side by side with each other. This guide or master or angel first transmits a beautiful presence of love, a great welcoming to you. You might feel your heart open up, or a sense of lightness or peace pervade you. Here you are unconditionally loved and accepted and embraced. You are seen as perfect and beautiful. And so a nice connection is being made here. All you need to do is open and ask and then receive it. And begin a conversation. I want you to think of some question that you have for this guide. It could be about a personal issue in your life. It could be just a curious question, but allow something to come to mind that would help you in your growth or to manage your life a little bit better. And when you have that question, what I want you to do is I want you to ask that question telepathically and then receive. You may hear this guide speaking to you. You may see images or get feelings, but I'm going to remain silent for a moment. Go ahead and ask your question and see what you get. All right. Trust that whatever you got, even if it was just one word or an image or a feeling, or if you engaged fully in a conversation, was perfect. If you wish at this point to ask for the name of that guide, you can. And if you enjoy the exchange, know that this being is always available. You can simply think of that being's name, or if you got an image of them or the feeling tone of that being, You can call upon them in the future. Thank this being for communicating with you. And it appreciates you as well, because a guide and master needs other beings to share its knowledge with, in the same way that you on the earth plane are sharing your knowledge and wisdom with other human beings. Thank this being. Slowly find your way back to the entrance of the temple of the masters. Once again, you are being enclosed in a beautiful cocoon of light surrounding you. And feel yourself descending back to the earth plane smoothly, easily, until once again you feel yourself in your chair, or if you're standing, feeling yourself in this body, in this time, in this dimension, retaining the memory of the experience, and slowly coming back into your body and opening your eyes when you are ready to return back to the room. Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you for that beautiful experience.
Hmm.
What a wonderful connection. I really hope everyone feels the comfort and the wisdom from this inner space, this inner scape of our multidimensional connection. We
Hmm.
really are all one. For me, without going into too many details, I could say a name. It's a name everybody knows,
Hmm.
but it was surprising. Or maybe you want me to say the name. Paramhansa Yogananda came for me.
Oh.
I saw his eyes very, very vividly.
Hmm.
And I just heard, do no harm.
Hmm.
And so on our journey, no matter where we are in life, that is so beautiful to remember. So without me unpacking that too much here, for me, that was immensely comforting and healing. And so this is our multidimensional awareness. It is our capacity. It is the definition of multidimensional. And also, would you say that being reminded of past lives or accessing the Akashic records, this too is our multidimensionality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the dimensions overlap each other.
Mm,
We have a mental body, emotional body, a physical body, a etheric body, and sometimes you think, well, the mind thing is here and the emotions here, but actually they all overlap, because you can feel emotion throughout your entire body. And so it's the same thing with other realities. The temple of the masters isn't another dimension, but at the same time, it overlaps ours, and it's kind of, we can pop in and out of it. That's exactly what we just did. I feel like I'm still there. Even though we left, I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'll stay a little while. Can I get a room here? Do you have a Hilton? But it feels like I'm still kind of there in that consciousness. So dimensions are really states of consciousness.
I love that.
So you can, wherever you shift your consciousness, that's the dimension you're going to experience. So we can always be with the masters. We can always feel their presence, or a guide if we want to, or to experience love or harmony or truth. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to have that awareness, and not difficult to do. It's a very simple meditation, but anybody can do it. You don't need a special gift. As long as you're open to it and you have the intention, you will be shown other realities and other dimensions. You just have to ask. Hmm.
Well, keep on asking, everyone. And I know that many just want to stay here. We just want to live this way. And we don't want to be disturbed or distracted or
Hmm.
distorted
Hmm.
by things that pull us out of this vibration. What do you do to keep this connection, to keep yourself non-distracted?
I mean, it can be a challenging some days. I mean, my basic philosophy is just to do what excites you, love other people, like the basic things, stay healthy, exercise, eat well, those kind of basic things. But, the other challenges, we are going through a lot of challenges right now, and the planet changes.
Yeah,
And, we have 8 billion people here. When I saw Shirley MacLaine at that workshop back in '87, there were only 4 billion people. So it's twice as many people.
yes.
So it's a real thing. And so there's some days you're not going to feel that great, and other days you feel like, oh, that was so easy to do. I would just suggest everybody stick with your spiritual process and try to work through whatever's going on, because some days you're just not going to feel good. You may not feel like something may feel, or you're dealing with people who are challenging, and we do
Yeah.
our best ability to love them in the future. Like a lot of people who are listening to this broadcast, and myself and other people, we're really not from this time. We're really from the future in a way, because we're in 100 years, things that we're talking about now, everybody's going to know. They'll have all sorts of scientific instruments that can see the aura, and there'll be
Wow.
all sorts of technological advances, and people will, just like yoga is very popular, but 60 years ago it was less well known in the West. Now it's very common. These things will be known. The society will be more enlightened. The vibrations will be smoother. But right now we hit bumps in the road. So I would say don't judge your process. Do the best ability to love yourself and others, and just kind of do what excites you, and keep growing. That's what I find, is I just keep on growing and learning and expanding. And that keeps me centered, in my true self, which is I think what we all really want, and in right relationship with other people.
Thank you for that. That is wonderful. And we're really feeling inspired by it. And the
Mhm.
reason why we have the vision of New Earth, we know that Earth, we sense
Mhm.
it, we see it. And if we have that vision for New Earth, really chances are we've come from that. And
Mhm.
that's why we've incarnated. Maybe we've all reincarnated from the future. That's a fascinating concept. It really is. Yes. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
So thank you, Egan Sanders. This was a wonderful introduction to how we can begin to build that psychic connection, to speak with our guides, to make
Mhm.
connection with our guides. We all will be traveling back to the Temple of the Masters and in communion with our angels, guides, and masters. So there's ways that people can work with you. You do one-on-one sessions for people. You do webinars here on New Earth One Network. A lot of beautiful ways for people to connect. Share with us your special offer, which is on this webpage. And there is a 1 hour session of telepathy coaching,
Okay.
and there's 4
Okay.
sessions,
Okay,
life
that's the one.
coaching
That's
access.
the one. So basically, I would teach people psychic skills and how they could strengthen them, and sometimes I can show people how to actually see the physical aura. Other times, just becoming more sensitive to emotions and thoughts, how to change that energy. So if somebody has like a pattern where they feel stressed out about something, or like a recurring energy, I can help them change that. Um, Sometimes I just do a clearing on that person. That sometimes it happens if their aura. I was talking with a client this morning, and they were like having a difficult time. And I said, well, we can do a clearing. And if you do that, then you'll be able to think more clearly. So it can be like a runner, a wide gamut of different possibilities. But anybody who wants to open up psychically. I remember when I actually went to a coach many years ago, probably like in, yeah, the late 80s or something. And he would meditate with me, and I started opening up, and I did a couple of sessions with him. And it was kind of helpful because it kind of corroborated certain things. So that's kind of the offer that I put with this talk.
Thank you for that. We encourage everyone to sign up for it. It's a beautiful way to expand your telepathic connection with your own guides. If you
Yes.
resonated with anything with this today, sign up with Egan Sanders. He's here for facilitating your expansion and your growth. Again,
Mm,
that's right here on this webpage, or it's in the description box wherever you're watching this video.
mm.
Egan, there's also life coaching sessions. Now, these are interesting. You have created the law of attraction game. That's really one of your uh, kingpin courses, one of your big things. There it is right behind you. So you're really well-rounded in your spiritual teachings. You can literally help someone step fully into their spiritual journey on earth, but also from a business level, a life level.
Yeah, people, if they want to manifest something like an object or a certain financial goal. I also work with people who are highly sensitive, people who have anxiety. So it kind of runs the gamut of, emotions, thoughts, materializing things, spiritual awareness. I work with star seeds as well. So, these are all things I just did after so many years. I've been immersed in it, so fascinated by all these worlds. These were things that I just learned as I went along, and they became components, because if you always just do one thing, like, that can be great, but, if we're multidimensional, we have different aspects. We have our emotions, our thoughts, our material needs. And so these have to be addressed in some way. And so I found that I had to learn those things to be fully here on the planet and do my spiritual work. So, and then I pass it on to other people through the coaching and through sessions and that sort of thing.
Wonderful, beautiful. So if people are interested in working with Egan Sanders, you can go ahead and register for that, life coaching packages or
Mhm.
a telepathy session. If you
Mhm.
need help and assistance with this, we want to make it easy for everyone who wants to work with you, Egan.
Thank
There's
you.
a two-payment plan, and that's a wonderful way for you to pay half, and then the other half is 30 days later. That's all available in the shopping cart when you go to purchase.
Hmm.
That's wonderful. And so, Egan, we did mention that you have recordings of mastery empowerment courses that you've done. Those are also available in a special bundle on this webpage.
Mhm.
And you did mention that you're going to be working with the Asasani. That's going to be another webinar series coming up. Tell
That'll
us
be,
about that one. That
yeah,
one sounds amazing.
that'll be in April. So yeah, I have next week creating a radiant aura with angelic beings. That'll be March 13th. March 21st on New Earth One, I'll be the Law of Attraction game experience where we'll actually play attract it to setting a goal um, and manifesting that. And then what I'm going to do in April is a three-part series, and it is called Essassani Ascension Path, Shifting into Ecstasy. And so in that three-part series, I'm going to talk about the history and culture of Essassani, um, you know, expanding your awareness to remember your true self. I'm going to talk about time travel and teleportation and limitless energy, the actual science of it. Um, Living in a state of unconditional love and unity. So there'll be a lot of interesting things. I'll also be doing some meditations where we actually, somebody feels they're a star seed and wants to know where they're from, will actually find their home planet through a meditation and also visit a mothership, which will be another meditation, which I went through. Which is very interesting. So I lead some of those guided meditations. So I'll do that over the course of 3 weeks. And also talk about the association of worlds, which is throughout the galaxy. And when you follow certain ideas and concepts, you become a member of the association of worlds, which I think there's a membership card that comes with it, but I don't know.
Okay, we want to become a member of that. Really cool. All
Okay.
right. I love it because it's just your journey. Here you are. You're a very practical spiritual teacher, I do have to say. You're very down to earth,
Have to
but yet
be.
you're so far out there as well that
Yeah.
it's comforting for all of us to know that yeah, we got this. We can do this. We can open up our faculties in this way, and we can be more aware of what's going on and the messages that we're getting. So I find it really cool, and I thank you for your time today. And I wanted to just have you tune in. Is there a message for us?
The message is to keep going because even though when we look at the outer world and the news and the media and things going on, it doesn't make much sense. But I guess the feeling I'm getting from the collective guides that are here is that, you know, sometimes things that seem so solid can disappear, overnight. If we think about, the fall of the Berlin Wall, back it was in 1989, we just thought that that was impassable and it was never going to change and whatever. And then overnight it just collapsed. And that was a big paradigm shift for a lot of people. So things will simply collapse that need to collapse. New forms will come in. It's a little bit messy, but this is kind of what we came here to do, was to grow and share this knowledge and light through New Earth One, through quantum conversations, through our own spiritual practice and what we exchange with other people. So just keep going. It will manifest, and you'll notice that it does it in pieces here and there, like this conversation or a conversation you have with somebody or something you manifest in your life. We're creating it. So keep going, and we will recreate that new reality around ourselves, but we have to keep going.
Beautiful. Inspiring. We will keep on keeping on, and we will be in joy and bring forth the love and light of our soul and our higher self. That's our mission. And we thank everyone watching for doing that, for anchoring this light on the planet, for sharing that light, and for envisioning New Earth. Egan Sanders, thank you so much for this presentation today.
Thank you, Lauren.
Namaste. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.